Hey, what's going on, guys? Juan Pablo here from 100% Finance. Now, today's video, we have a special guest, and we're going to talk about when is the best time for you to quit your day job through real estate investing. Stay tuned. Hey, what's going on, guys? Juan Pablo here, 100% Finance. I'm a full-time real estate investor, online entrepreneur. And today's episode is going to be slightly different. We're doing a Zoom call with a good friend of mine, and his name is Jamel. He's knee-deep in real estate investing, been in the game since forever, right? But what I like to do is allow him to provide a self-introduction in regard to what he does.
Juan, what's up, man?
What's up? What's up? How's it going?
Oh man, everything is good, man. Thanks for having me on the show, man. It's a real pleasure to be invited, and I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to making this a fun time, and also help our listeners learn how they can get started doing what we do as well, man. So, thanks for having me, brother.
All right, thanks for being here. So, without further ado, the topic is, when is the best time for a real estate investor to say goodbye to 9 to 5, right? Because, some people might do it too soon, might do it too late. But if you don't mind sharing where you're at today and then how you started as well. Meaning like your final destination and your starting point, you mind sharing that for the viewers today.
Sounds good, man. So how about this? I'll start off with, how I started off, and then we'll talk about where I ended up or where I am today, and then kind of take it from there.
Perfect.
Basically, I graduated high school in 99. So this is, I promise you, man, this is not going to be the old uncle or grandpa story where you're going to fall asleep and I'm going to tell you everything that happened. And then it's not going to be that. So it's going to be, I'll keep it short and brief. Okay. So I graduated high school in 99. Fresh out of high school, I was working in a barbershop at that time. I actually had my own barbershop in high school. But as I'm working in the barbershop, out of high school, I ran into a guy who was working for the phone company back then. It was called Atlantic. So if you're from New York, you know exactly what I'm talking about, anywhere from the Northeast, right? But this guy was about 21, 22 years old at the time. He was making like $70,000, $80,000 a year. And he had this car. It was called the Mazda 626. And that was like a nice car back then, in my opinion.
Man, I had the same car
Yeah,
in college.
Yeah, look at that, man. So this guy's driving around in this nice car. He had rims on it and everything, man. We're talking like the early 90s. And I'm like, wow, man. Mid 90s at that time. And I'm like, wow, man, if this guy's making this much money and he's doing this, I can do that as well. So a couple years later, I got a chance to know him. I graduated high school, and I asked him, how can I qualify for the same type of job? Because he was doing well at that time. And he said, just go down, take the test, and we can make it happen. So I graduated already. I went upstate New York. I took the test. It was right above the Bronx. Went upstate. I passed the test, and I was going to become a field technician for Atlantic. Unfortunately, they said that I was too young at the time. I needed to be 21 to be a field tech. So I didn't get the job. They did offer me another position working in the phone lines, like at operations and stuff like that. I wasn't interested at that time in that type of job. So I went back to the barbershop. I basically started all over again. While I was in the barbershop, I used to try to sell everything from Herbalife products to, any type of MLM you could think of. I done probably tried it, but I picked up some skills through sales and things like that at that time. Fast forward about a year later, around year 2000, I was offered a position as a cold caller on Wall Street. And I remember my aunt, she came and gave me the phone number to some guy named Brandon. He had a partner named Chris, and they were willing to pay me $250 every 2 weeks to cold call internationally. So we would call Australia, we would call Norway, Switzerland, the United States as well. Anywhere where there were big businesses, we were calling these countries, trying to get people to qualify them to eventually invest into spot trading currencies with the firm. So over the course of the year, I had to open up 500. I had to qualify 500 leads within a 12-month time frame to qualify to become an account opener. I used to spend, I kid you not, man, I spent the night in the office multiple times. I learned the value of hard work. I learned the value of, what it took to really talk to people and build a relationship with people over the phone that I never met. These are all skills that played a major part in my real estate business later on. But the most important thing that I picked up from that was I saw guys literally 19, 20 years old making $6-7 million a year. That just changed my mindset towards everything. And in real estate, mindset it plays a huge factor in how successful you're going to be. Long story short, man, I ended up becoming an account opener. I had to open up 10 accounts to qualify to take my test to become a currency broker. So I passed the test. I did everything I needed to do. Unfortunately, 9/11 took place and then the company went out of business like a couple of weeks after because all of the investors were pulling their money out because they were uncertain as to where the market was going. So it was like a big frenzy, a big, frantic situation at that point. And unfortunately, I started all over. So I had a friend who was in real estate selling houses in Brooklyn. He was actually a real estate agent for one of the largest companies in Brooklyn, New York. One day he came to me, this was a couple months after 9/11. He said, look, man, I just made $30,000 on this commission. Why don't you come do this? So I ended up giving it a shot. I went and took my test. I became an agent. And then while I was an agent, I met up with other investors. And these investors, I saw the numbers that they were pulling in. And I said, if they can do that, I can do that. And that's kind of how I got my start in real estate. Fast forward, between 2002 to 2006, my main method was buying, fixing, and then refi cash out or sell on a rent to own. So I was doing what they call now the BRRRR method. They had hundreds of those between Brooklyn and Pennsylvania. I ended up moving to Pennsylvania in 2006. Actually, it's January 1st, 2006. I bought a couple of hundred houses out there. This was in a Reading area. And then from there, around 07, 08, the market took a hard hit. And unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough. I was in my mid-20s. I wasn't smart enough to realize that what I was doing wasn't going to last forever, or that there were market shifts. I didn't have anybody sharing information with me. There was no such thing as a coach back then. Well, there probably were, but I wasn't aware of it myself. I really learned this business through trial and error. So I went from making a ton of money in real estate in my mid-20s to my upper 20s, about 27 years old. I went bankrupt. Literally, I lost everything. The good thing is I learned work ethic over the years, and I learned from my mistakes. So within a year, I was back on my feet. And since then, I started wholesaling REOs at that time. This is around 2009 into 2013. From 13 onward, I focused on motivated sellers versus bank-owned REO stuff. And then from there, man, I've done everything from new construction to creative real estate investing to, I was buying, fixing, and selling houses just a couple of years ago to now I'm focused directly on wholesaling and creative investing. I've tried any and everything you can think of. We built 33 houses last year. We've, bought apartment buildings. We've done it all. I find that the sweet spot for me and my business today, at the time of this video right now, is wholesaling and creative investing, taking that capital to build passive income streams and apartment buildings and small apartments as well as residential real estate. That's where our sweet spot is, and that's what has absolutely changed the game for us. So that's what the business looks like today, man.
Well, kudos to you, man, surviving all those setbacks. Correct me if I'm wrong, your first setback was, well, for one, you got laid off, right? Mm-hmm. Or the business went under because of 9/11. Mm-hmm. Two, the 2007 crash, right? And then three, you say you faced bankruptcy.
Yep.
Right? So my question is, even though after all those setbacks, you were still able to create business income, which you use strategically to finance your passive income today.
That's right.
You wholesale, you take your wholesale proceeds to buy rentals, right?
Yeah. So basically what happened in the interim of all of this, man, I literally failed forward each time without even realizing that I was failing. I get a small setback, but I knew what not to do the next time around. So the first time around, I wasn't saving. I was spending a lot of money. I was living above my means. I didn't take into account to buy more houses with the cash that I was accumulating through real estate investing, and I got a hard hit when the market crashed. I had so much money out there in the market, and I couldn't sell a house at that point. It got to the point where I went down under. But what I learned from that experience is you need to reinvest into your business. If you're making a lot of money, put it into passive income streams, so on and so forth. So that's exactly what I built up today. So what I do, I get, a wholesale check, or I'll get a check from a creative deal, or maybe I'll take on a creative deal as a rental property. However we get the money is going back into more passive income streams, and we live off of the passive income versus the money that's coming in, the active income streams, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. So you did mention that you fell forward, right, through a lot of
Move
trial and error.
forward.
Now, for someone who's getting started now, and you mentioned back then you may not have been aware of a mentor or online course or what have you. So what would you recommend to that newbie now in regard to getting started and continuing to move forward with real estate and having that? What would you say would be the good time for them to actually quit their day job?
That's a great question, man. First and foremost, I want to say, for anyone that's listening, see, you have access to things that Juan and I didn't have access to back then. You have access to YouTube. You have access to home study courses, and everybody's a mentor today, right? You have Juan today, who's the perfect mentor for you guys. You definitely want to be mindful of the educational part of this thing. Educate yourself, but don't over-educate yourself, right? That's one. The object in the education is so that you can take action with the information rather than sitting on the information. Don't allow it to become shelf help. It need to be self-help. You honestly have to apply what you learn. I'm notorious, and I kid you not, Juan, I can go through a book, I'll go through a couple pages and then go do what the book says, then come back to the book later and then read a couple more pages, then go do it. And keep doing that over and over and over again. Eventually, you've accomplished what it is that you wanted, or you've started you put yourself in motion to be able to take the action in order to get from where you are now to where you want to go. That's what this is all about, right? Taking action. The information is not going to get you rich. The action is going to get you rich. So first and foremost, educate yourself, but apply the education. And don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money on education. Skip the learning curve. Juan may have a program. You may see a great program out there. Invest into it. You invest to go to college. Invest into your self-education to be able to help you truly change your life. So that's one. The object with the education, again, is to take action, but the action should lead you to getting your first check, right? And that's the check that's going to make you a believer, right? That's the check that's going to allow you to see that this thing actually works. It materializes the business for you. So you educate yourself, one. After that, you take action, but then the action should lead you to your first check. And you don't give up until you get to that first check, right? And we could talk about roadblocks and all of that stuff that you're going to face throughout the time frame of getting your first check, but the object is to get the first check. Once you get that first check, you rinse and repeat the same process over and over and over again until you put a year's worth of income in the bank, right? Then you can decide at that point if you want to quit your job, if you want to start investing in the passive income streams, which you should be. And then once you have a certain amount of passive income streams, which can supplement your income, you're considered wealthy at that point, right? So this is a step-by-step process. Start from where you are right now. Continue pulling in this education that Juan is putting out. Take action with the education. As you take action, have the goal in mind that I'm going to get my first check. Now, if your goal is to get to the first check, think about it like this. You can be in a car, right? Think about a destination. The vehicle is real estate investing. But if you had the destination and you jump in a car, you put the car in drive, you go down road number 1, chances are you're going to have some potholes, right? It's going to be some roadblocks. Maybe a tree fell down, right? Do you just stop and give up? That's not real life. Real life is, let's turn around, let's find another way. Maybe you go down road number 2 and there's backed up traffic. So do you allow the traffic to stop you from reaching your destination? Absolutely not. You put the car in reverse. You turn around. You go down road number 3. Now you're on road number 3. That's the clear path to your destination, but it may take you a little bit of time. You know, recently I went on a trip to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. I knew what the destination was, but it was a 4.5 hour drive, and I hate driving. So that's a roadblock for me. That's a hurdle I had to get over. That time that I spent on the road, even though I had a clear road, it took some time to get there. Same with you, right? That clear path is there after you hit the roadblocks, but you got to stay on the road for a little while. Eventually, you're going to get to the first check. Don't give up so easily. And once you get that first check, again, consider rinse and repeating the same process over and over again until you have a year's worth of income in the bank, right? A year's worth of what you're making right now. If you're making $20 an hour right now, $15, $50 an hour, whatever your annual salary is right now, you should be able to put that in the bank within a 12-month time frame. Then you can decide, okay, do I want to leave my job? How can I build more passive income streams? How can I build up enough passive income to where I don't have to work and I can still do whatever I want to do, or scale my business at that point? These are things that you want to consider. The destination is building a passive income, replacing your job. Whatever it is that you want out of real estate investing, but the road to get there is education, action, first check, year's worth of income, building passive income, so on and so forth. And that's how you go from where you are right now to where you want to go in real estate. And, that's how I did it. And that's how I recommend you do it as well.
Oh, that sounds very wise. Is at the point of when they have a year's worth of money in the bank, that gives them plenty of time to reflect about the next move, right?
Because then you can, exactly, man. Because at that point, you have room. You're not thinking, you're thinking logically at that point, right? So you put your head down. By the time you pick your head up, you have all of this money in the bank. But you're thinking logic. You think different when you have money in the bank. You're not thinking out of desperation. You're thinking out of, what's the next power move I can make? So you're thinking more logically, not with your pockets. You're thinking with your brain at that point. So you got to put your head down and grind it out for a little while. But, honestly, the average person should be able to retire from real estate in 3 to 5 years if you choose to, right? The question is how to do it. And that's exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So let me play devil's advocate here, right? By giving you a scenario. Let's say you have this beginning real estate investor. Let's say he chose the strategy of wholesaling properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say he has a job in which he's able to work from home, right? But he has dedicated hours in which he has to monitor the phone lines or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say he's making decent pay, whatever you consider decent. Let's say $30 an hour, right? Now, let's say, for instance, that he wholesales a deal once a month. But at that rate, it's not enough money yet to surpass his a year's worth of income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say he comes across a situation in which he has a motivated seller, and the motivated seller is very direct and says, hey, if you want me to sign on this dotted line, I'm only going to do it in person, right? So I'm not into all the technology. Let's say this person is an older person, they're not tech savvy, and he's like, hey, if you want me to sign off on this dotted line, you got to come to my property, which is maybe a 30-minute drive from this wholesaler's house. Because I'm getting so many offers for so many different wholesales. I'm getting yellow letters in the mail. I'm getting calls. I'm getting postcards. I'm getting so much correspondence. Just the first person who comes to my house to sign, is yours. And let's say the wholesaler knows all this transaction, he will make, let's say, $8,000, right? Now he has the option. Either A, he stays at his job because he knows this transaction, this $8,000 check he may potentially receive, is not going to be enough to put him over, to be able to quit his day job as of right then and there. Or B, he loses out on that one particular deal.
Okay.
So playing devil's advocate, how would you advise someone who's facing that scenario? Because they see the value add potential that, hey, if I do this full time, I might be able to really kill it with wholesaling, and I don't even need this job.
Yeah. So, again, if somebody is 100%, if you're well off right now and you don't need your job, then you can make the choice of leaving to put more time in real estate. But if you're not sure how you're going to pay your bills for if you don't have at least a couple of months worth of income in the bank, stay with your job. It'll be foolish to leave your current circumstance for something that you're not sure if it's going to work or not, if that makes sense. So basically, don't cut off the supply line that's feeding your household right now. You keep that supply line open, and you do this part-time until you have enough in the bank to make the conscious decision to leave. I think, and I'm going to say this, man, I think it's stupid to cut off your supply line. That's like saying, hey, I got a pipe full of money coming in. I'm going to stop this pipe right now, and I'm going to go try this out, but I'm not sure if that's going to work out right now. But if it don't work out, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to cause unnecessary stress on myself until it works, and then we'll go with it. If it doesn't work, then I got to figure something out after the fact. So the point is, don't cut off the supply line. That's foolish, right? If you're making $30 an hour, continue making $30 an hour until you have enough in the bank. I'm going to repeat this again. Until you have enough in the bank to make an educated decision, a conscious decision to say, I'm ready to leave. I don't need the $30 an hour anymore. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. Now, you talked a lot about education. Starting out, you did mention you didn't have a mentor, or you just weren't aware of any like home study courses.
And let me correct myself there. I back in '99, fresh out of high school, around 2000, I bought Carlton Sheets course.
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm sure you probably read some book.
Yeah.
You got some type of education, right?
Then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was fresh out of high school as well. That kind of changed my mindset. And then I was exposed to certain things. Guys 19, 20, at my age, making millions of dollars in currency trading. And then I was exposed to my friend making money in real estate. All of this exposure and this little bit of information I had kind of allowed me to see that this was a real thing. So in my mind, even though I didn't make the money yet, it was real to me. I knew what I was capable of doing, and I wasn't going to give up until I actually made the money. And that kind of led me into today. Now, about midway through, after I've had success in real estate, I had a guy named Steve who kind of showed me how to accumulate a portfolio of real estate at that point. He had over 100 houses himself. I was impressed by that. I kind of learned some of that from him, but for the most part, it was really trial and error on my behalf, making a lot of mistakes where, unavoidable mistakes that they should have been unavoidable mistakes. But unfortunately, we didn't have guys like you and I. We didn't have YouTube. There was MySpace back then, but nobody was using MySpace for education platforms. That stuff didn't exist. And that's why I say for someone watching this right now, it's so much easier for you to be able to do it. You have technology. We used to write stuff with pencil and paper to keep notes. You have something called a CRM today, right? You have YouTubeversity. We didn't have that, right? You have, Facebook groups where you can go in and get support and ask questions. We didn't have that stuff. In fact, there were very little people out there who had the information that you needed to accomplish what you wanted back then. But the world is your oyster right now. Seriously. You have access to so much stuff that we didn't have access to. And that's why I'm going to always say it's that much easier for you to get from where you are right now to where you want to go because of having access to all of these different things.
Well said, well said. And I have to agree with you 100%, especially about when you said there were people in your age group, your age bracket, who were killing it, even though it wasn't the real estate industry, but just the exposure of someone who's your age. And that really what motivated me to get my first multi-unit property out of state. I met a guy at a networking group, and he was talking about a 6-unit apartment building he just bought. And he might have been, I think maybe 2 years older than me. And that just opened up my eyes like, wow, if this dude can do it, then I can do it. You know, what's the difference? Only difference between he and I is just he got started a little bit before I did.
Time. I learned that down on Wall Street too, man. They used to sell me. They used to say the only difference between you and me is time. That's it. I have more time doing this than you do. So time will allow you to catch up to me. All right. That's basically what the only difference between you and I is time. So like you said, if he can do it, you can do it. He was just in the game a little longer. That's all. That's all it was, man. And anybody, as far as real estate, you know, you put the time in, you can catch up. You just got to put the time in and take action. That's it.
So it's the time. So it's not really, well, he got the better credit, or, well, he got more capital, or, well, he had a lucky break, or, well, he chose a different market because in my market, prices are way too expensive. So you're saying all those roadblocks is just smoke.
I believe there's a way around any roadblock. You know, you can, if you got to partner with somebody for a little bit of time, right? The whole point is you find a way around your circumstances to get what you need. You improve your current situation while you're finding ways around these circumstances, and then eventually you'll be able to do it on your own if that's the case. You know, some people do have a head start, right? I do believe that. Some people have the credit, they have some money, they're already in a position where they're going to be financially well off in real estate a lot quicker than others. But then that doesn't stop you. You can appreciate your grind. You can appreciate your circumstances a little bit more based off of what you go through during this whole journey. You got to remember, this is not a sprint. We're looking to get to where we want to go quickly, but we want to remember that this is a marathon, right? This is life, right? This is not a sprint. We're not looking to get rich quick. We're looking to get rich or get wealthy and hold the wealth. And those little bumps and bruises that you get along the road it will help you to appreciate the wealth and be able to hold it longer when you do get it, because you're aware of all of the circumstances it took to get to where you are at that point. So yeah, some people do have head starts. Some people do have different hurdles, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you get there. The point is just getting there. And you become more of a believer by the things you're exposed to along that journey. Make sense?
Makes sense. And that person, just like a race as well, that person may have got a head start, right? They might have jumped the gun before it went off. Right. And they might have a fair, I also say unfair advantage, right? Mm-hmm. But you can still catch up to them in time. Or you might have to increase your pace. You might have to go at a faster pace than they are.
Yep. Work a little harder. For me, it was more, I started off in the projects. So if I'm looking at some of my friends who had some money already, they had a major head start. I caught up to them and surpassed them just by sheer effort and hard work. You can do the same thing. I truly believe that. Real estate is the great equalizer. It equalizes wealth across the board if you play the game right. So think about Monopoly, right? If you're good at the game Monopoly, if you're not good, you need to get good. But if you're good at the game Monopoly, you can be losing the game and come around and win the whole board. You could do the same thing in your real estate investing business in real life. Play Monopoly with real cash at that point.
Now, you mentioned don't cut off your supply line, right? If you currently have that 9 to 5 producing whatever income you need, $30 an hour that we talked about earlier, and they're doing real estate in their spare time, whether it's fix and flip, whether it's the Bird method, whether it's wholesaling, buying whole, multi-unit properties, whatever the case may be. What if that person says, hey man, I don't even have enough time for me. I don't have enough time for self-care or my mental health, right? Because I'm working full-time, spare time. I don't have time for other commitments like family and so forth. What do you recommend to that person who's in that situation?
Two things, man. That's a great question, because far too many people forget about that particular circumstance, right? So number one, there's two different ways to look at this. You can do it the way that I did it. I sacrificed, right? So when I say sacrifice, I spent the first 10 years. I was doing pretty well by the time I was 25, and I lost it all by the time I was 27. I built it back up before I was 30, right? But I spent 10 years of my life working 15 to 18-hour days, grinding it away to get as far from the poverty line as possible. That's one way to do it. What I've learned is you can have everything you ever thought of by having balance, right? So what I mean by that is, you got a family, you got your job, you got, you want to start up a business, you got your health to think about, maybe you take some time out for mindset. You got to set, I'm a firm believer in having a to-do list, right? And just knocking off 7 things each day on the to-do list. I don't try to overexert myself. Anything more than 7 things is honestly gonna be overexerting for yourself. You can't give it 1,000% if it's more than 7 things. I've learned that over the years, right? There's studies on this stuff, right? If you just stick to 7 things, you can give it 100%. Anything over that, it starts to dwindle. So if you want to give it 100% effort and be the best, then focus on 7 things. But it all boils down to having balance in your business, having balance in your life. And if you're working a full-time job and you feel like you need some time for yourself, that's where the sacrifice comes in, right? You gotta sacrifice something in order to get to where you want to go. So although you don't need to work 15, 18, 20 hours a day like I did, working overnight, writing yellow letters at 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't need to do that. If you have balance, but understand that you're going to need some type of sacrifice for a little bit of time. Because then once you sacrifice, what you can do once you start bringing in some income is replace yourself, ultimately automating the process, using other people's time and energy and efforts. And that's going to allow you to buy your time back and build a real business at that point. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of, every new level of success requires another level of sacrifice.
That's right.
And the reason why I asked that, because I had a friend of mine, old friend of mine, and he posed that question. He was working a 9 to 5, but instead of doing a real estate, he was great at consulting. And I shared with him, like, hey, you can do this as your own business. You're really good at this. But he mentioned, like, hey, I just don't want to make that another level of sacrifice, burning the midnight oil, potentially sacrificing my mental health just so I can make more money on my own business. So it's just important for people to know that at time you have to put in work.
Everything that's worth having is worth sacrificing for at the end of the day. You got to have some balance, but more important than any of that is the sacrifices you're going to make. So it's going to take maybe not watching Sunday night football, Monday night football. It's gonna take, losing a little bit of sleep. Maybe I lived on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a little while because I had to put my money into marketing.
Social life.
No social life. And that may, at the end of it, for me, I really didn't have a social life at all while I was building up my businesses. I appreciate my social life and my friends now, but I lost a lot of friends along the way. Sometimes if you're going to lose those friends, unfortunately, they could be dead weight. They're not helping you get to where you want to go. So these are all things these are all part of the sacrifices. These are all things that you need to take into account as you're building your business. Is this something, everybody's not built for this. Do you really want to do this? Do you really want to take your business to the next level? Do you really want to leave that job, that comfortable lifestyle that you're living right now? Because you're going to be uncomfortable And you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You really do. I purposely live my life forcing myself to be uncomfortable in every situation. And that allows me to continue to grow and expand, but it takes the sacrifice, the initial sacrifice in the very beginning to get started doing it.
Excellent, excellent. So what we'll do is we'll post your contact information, social media, website in the description. But I want to end with this. If you can share maybe your top 3 books that you recommend someone who wants to quit their day job through real estate investing, top 3 books.
Top 3 books, I'm going to always recommend number 1 for business. The first book I've ever read from cover to cover was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All right. That book absolutely changed my life in a way I look at things. Because of that book, I built up the drive and I'm here today. Second book I recommend, it's a book by Mike Michalowicz. What's the name of this book?
Profit First.
Profit First.
Yeah.
That's a great book. I really understood when I went through that book and I started understanding how you should pay yourself first. Because I was notorious for putting everything ahead of my personal situation. It wasn't until I made the switch, I started realizing you really gotta put some money away. That changed the game for me. So Profit First is another great.
You got to factor the profit into every single dollar.
Every single dollar. Yep.
It from the jump.
Yep.
Without sacrifice.
Yep.
Now, well, I do got to pay this bill. No, you got to pay yourself for Profit First.
Yep. Exactly. So that was a book that changed. I listened to that book on Audible a couple years ago. I've gone through it multiple times. I love Audible. I'm an avid audio learner. I feel like I learn better by listening rather than looking at a book and reading all day long. So for me, that was a great book. And I'm looking at my cell phone right now, man. There's so many books, man. But if I had to put it in order, I would say Rich Dad Poor Dad was one. I want to say Profit First was another great one. And I read a book by Damon John. I'm just looking for the name of it.
The Power of Broke?
The Power of Broke. It just reminds me of no matter where you start, you can end up wherever you want, you know. And then you listen to the stories of some of the stories that he shared in that book, and it just goes to show you with some hard work, hard work, in my opinion, beats talent all day long, right? But if you have, if you're willing to put forth the work, sacrifice a little bit, you can have whatever it is that you want. Damon John is proof of it. You know, Juan is proof of it. And I like to pat myself on the back a little bit and say I'm proof of it as well. I grew up in the projects, man. My life right now is absolutely incredible. I can't believe it's like living a dream, right? And I'm not trying to boast or brag or anything. The people say that I got lucky. You can't call me lucky if you were sleeping when I was working, right? So the Power of Broke helps me to appreciate that. And there's so many other books that I can mention, but those are 3 of my favorites right there. There's 4-Hour Work Week and all these other books as well. But those are, one more. I'm going to share one more. This is probably one of my all-time favorites outside of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, George Clason.
I love that book. If you're interested in passive income and investing, it has nothing to do with real estate investing per se, but it has everything to do with real estate investing. You need to read that book. That's probably one of my favorite books of all time, hands down. The Richest Man in Babylon. Read it.
I like how when I asked you that question, none of those were really real estate specific books.
Right, none of them.
Right, it's all mindset.
With the exception of maybe a little bit of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What do you think?
But not necessarily like step 1, do this,
Yeah.
step 2, do this. This is a rate of return you need to receive. Here's the process. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad is more like the philosophy. All these books are about the philosophy of becoming a successful business person, independent of your industry, right? Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to close with that and answer that question, because I remember, I think the first time I was featured on your podcast, you said a quote to me, and that's why I'm keep looking up because I have a whiteboard right above here. And I actually wrote it down. It says, reading an hour a day keeps the competition away.
That's right.
Yeah. So I have it written down up here, and it's just powerful that you won't be where you're at today if you didn't invest in your education.
That's right,
And
man.
also work hard, as you mentioned. Get exposure from other people. And you had a blueprint, not so much a fine-tuned blueprint, but you had an end goal of, I need to make sure I replace my yearly salary with this real estate thing. So
That's right.
kudos to you, man. I'm happy for your success. And I wish you the best of luck. And guys, if you're interested in learning more, just check the link below in the description if you want to be able to reach out to Jamel. All right, guys, as always, this is to your success. Continue to earn passively and live passionately. Peace.